When people are looking for one-sided lives, like a magnet, and trying to get a one-sided magnet, it's futile. If I told you that I would give you $1 billion if you could give me a one-sided magnet, a positive without a negative, you would search if you were ignorant, but if you knew the laws, you would know that it would be futile. You would embrace the two sides of the magnet. How could you have magnetism with only one side? How can you have life with only one side? So those that are seeking one side are missing out on the magnificence and the magnetism of opportunity that's in their life. And religions that sell one-sidedness, instead of embracing both-sidedness, are, I think, a stage of awareness, not the complete awareness. And I think that we live in a magnificent universe. We have a magnificent world, and the people around us have more magnificence than we realize. And I do my best to try to help people see it, because if we do, we can truly love ourselves and our neighbors and our universe as it is, from our heart, mind, and soul. There are two types of heavens. The type of heaven that we fantasize about when we're looking for that which supports our values to keep us juvenile, and the type of heaven when we finally embrace that everything is in order and there's a balance of polarities, and we're grateful for that balance because there's nothing to change. That heaven is embracing two sides. The first heaven is seeking one side. Now, hell, on the other hand, is the idea that life is not matching our fantasy, and we're frustrated because we're not getting our delusion and our addiction to our fantasy. Or it's the separation of the inseparables. It's the idea that we're supposed to get one side, happy without sad. So when we're striving for a one-sided life, life is hell because we can't get but two sides. And when we finally embrace both sides of life, we have heaven because now we're grateful. So I like to think of heaven as purely a state of gratitude for the balance of life that's inherent in life. And hell is the searching for one side and not appreciating the two sides of life. There are many children that go to elementary school. There are fewer numbers that go to high school. There are fewer numbers that go to college. There are fewer numbers that go on to become professors. There are fewer numbers that become professor emerituses. And there's a handful of Nobel Prize winners or prize winners. There's a gradation of awareness in every field. The same in religion. You've got masses of people that have levels of awareness, and then you have obviously a hierarchical structure of people that have ever greater awareness as you rise. In every field, in sports, the same thing occurs. So anytime you have states of consciousness that are hierarchical like that, you would expect to have the same thing in religious understanding. The very bottom, which I call the religious fundamentalist, are the ones that see things black and white. And the very top are the people that are more universalist and they see things as gray. I'll use the analogy. If you take a top and you spin it really fast, and half the top is black and half the top is white, and spin it at infinite speed, it will stand steady. It will radiate heat. It will be neither gray or black or white. It'll be gray. But if it starts to lower its vibration, it starts to precess and wobble. And eventually you start to see black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white. And eventually it falls and topples over, and it's either black or white. And gravity rules it. Well, the more grave the situation, the more, you might say, dense the situation, the more black and white is perceived in perception. And the more you have awareness and the more awakened you are, the more you see the gray, you see the synthesis and synchronicity of opposites. So terrorists are in gradations of seeing things black or white. And the more rigid they are in their black or white perceptions, the more the conflict. Because whoever their opposition is represents a part of themselves that they haven't owned and haven't loved within themselves. It's hidden. Whatever we condemn in others, we breed, attract, and become. Whatever we run away from, we run into. Whatever we resist, persists. And the terrorists are individuals that are running away from half of their own nature. The very people that they're condemning and they're wanting to eliminate is actually inherent inside their own nature. And their opposition is brought into their lives in conflict to eventually teach them how to love that parts of themselves. So both of the polarities are come together at war to try to teach them to humble themselves, to appreciate and embrace their disowned nature. So these are stages of awareness, and the person who's more awakened will embrace the sides of their nature, because the truth is you don't need to get rid of half of yourself in order to love yourself. True love is embracing both sides of yourself, the things that you like and dislike, instead of having to hold on to the things you like out of righteousness and project the things you dislike onto the opponent. The truth is your opponent is yourself. And when you finally embrace yourself, you love the people. I think it's unrealistic to think we're here to stamp it out, because what we try to stamp out, we're obviously at war against. And it's wiser to see the old Christian statement, pluck the mote out of our own eye before we pluck it out of others. I don't think it's wise to say, well, we're going to get rid of ignorance that way, or condemn that ignorance. I think it's wiser to just focus on sharing inspiration and education with people, because it's like trying to say, I want to get rid of all kindergarten kids and we get rid of all first graders because I want them all to be awakened. You need the stages of awareness. This is part of the nature. This is part of what remodels life. Inside our own nature, I've asked literally millions of people, if you were to go inside, how many of you have moments of inner calmness? And they all put their hands up. How many of you have moments of inner turmoil? They all put their hands up. How many of you, no matter how hard you tried, have a combination of both going back and forth? They put their hands up. And then when they get married, how many of you notice that there's still cooperation and competition? There's peaceful moments and warful moments. And there's times of calm and times of turmoil. And then when they have children, there's times of turmoil and times of calm. And then when they get with their friends, there's times of turmoil and calm. And I see that nature has both. Build and destroy, union and division, the law of similarities and differences, cooperation, competition, even peace and war. So to try to stamp it out, I think, is ignorance of the nature of our own nature. And so I think it's wiser to, instead of stamping it out, to understand its position, understand its level of awareness, and then share education and love with people. When you love people for who they are, they turn into who you love. When you bring education, true wisdom to people, it steps them up the ladder of awareness and helps them integrate the two sides. You know, in the Hindu concept of the Trimurti, the divinity of three in one, you have Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. You have what some have called the builder, the maintainer, and destroyer. Even though those are different attributes of the divinity, which is inherent in nature, we have spring and we have fall, we have summer and we have winter, we have build and we have decay, growth and decay. These are polarities that are inherent in nature, and they are in our own thoughts, they are in our own actions, they're in our own experiences. So to embrace that we're both builders and destroyers, to embrace that we're both unifiers and dividers, I think is wisdom. I think that the law of one in many, similar in differences, the polarities like that, are essentially to be embraced. And I think that when we do, we feel what true love is. Because most of us identify our being with our form, our body, which appears to be mortal and have a beginning and an end, our real being, as stated earlier, is an energy, a field, if you will, that continues, that has no beginning and end. And so as long as we identify our being with our mortal nature and we have the fear of death and the fear of loss, then we're going to end up setting up a moral polarity that automatically is going to want to save us at the expense of potentially others. This polarity right there is what is underlying many of the conflicts that we have in the world. If we really understood our true immortal nature, our true spiritual nature, we would embrace the life and death as part of the equation of existence. And in the process of doing, we'd understand that our survival is also our destruction. We must embrace both of them together. There's a difference between outer peace and inner peace. Inner peace is embracing both support and challenge, similarities and differences, union and division, kind and cruel, understanding both and embracing both as the pair of opposites that make up our existence. And outer peace is wanting to protect us from anything that challenges our mortal body from maybe something that could hurt us. And outer peace is only transient, but inner peace is something that we have access to by an alteration of perception. William James, who is a father of modern psychology over 100 years ago, stated in a nutshell that the greatest discovery of our generation is that human beings can alter their lives by altering their perceptions and attitudes of mind. And I really believe that if we can see things in a way, both supportive and challenging, as serving us in the ultimate journey, we can have an inner peace. And when we have an inner peace, we give permission for other people to do the same. When we love people for who they are, but for both the things we admire and despise, the things that support and challenge our values, the things we like and dislike, we have access to inner peace. But if we're looking for outer peace, what that usually means is we want something to support us and we want to avoid the challenges. And anybody that challenges, we want to stop. And anybody that supports us, we want to push and promote. But this is the thing that blocks inner peace. Inner peace occurs when we embrace people for who they are. when we love people for who they are, for both sides of their nature, they turn into who we love. And this occurs on an individual scale, a family scale, a community, a city, a state, a nation, and a whole world. It's wise to embrace life as it is, because the mystery of how it is and the magnificence of how it is far exceeds the fantasies that we impose on it. When we finally embrace life as a polarity in this two sides of life, within us and around us, we're able to appreciate our life, have that heavenly experience, that inner peace that allows us to embrace the two aspects of life. I find that many times the people that are most fundamentally religious are sometimes the most frightened. And the people that have the most awareness are the most gracious about life. They embrace the two sides of life. The most powerful thing you can do is, instead of running from challenge and trying to make your life easy, is to tackle the next challenge, tackle the next mystery, tackle the next questions of life and the next void and problems in life, and see what you can do to find the hidden order and solve it and help people with it. If we find people's problems and help them solve it, we grow in strength. And when we don't, we live juvenilely in a supportive environment trying to protect us. And when we create a God to protect us from that which makes us grow and challenge, then we hold ourselves back. So I say that there's a wisdom in embracing a divinity that has embraced all sides, both sides, support and challenge, and not to start to embrace a deity that only protects us from that which challenges, which keeps us juvenile. Because what I find is that people that are caught in this turmoil and tragedy, that are creating these ecstatic moments and then become addicted to those ecstatic moments to survive, then what they do is anytime they get around torture, they bring upon that deity that they make in their mind to help them through that tragedy. And in the process of doing it, they get addicted to that. And then that's the birth of the new religion that they have in their mind, made in their own image, an anthropomorphic creation of that which is a survival mechanism inside themselves when they're tortured. I'm not saying it's not necessary. It is, until you can actually find the blessings in the curse, the benefits and the drawbacks, the positives and the negatives. When you can see both of them together, then both of those fall apart and dissolve, and you get access to true religiosity, which is the hidden order that's gracing us throughout our lives, which I call love.